What's up, everybody? Welcome to another developer interview here at PSVR Without Parole. We're going to do things a little bit differently this week. We're talking to Ryan Payton, the founder of Camouflaj, who we all know at this point is making one of the most anticipated PlayStation VR games of the year, and that's Iron Man VR. Ryan, how do you feel, man? So close to launch. How are you feeling about? How do you feel about this?
Wow, it's well. First of all, thank you, Ryan, for letting me kind of crash your show, and big fan of what you and your community is all about. This is a real honor. But to answer your question, I have to be honest. Like it's like a cocktail of emotions. Very excited about our July 3rd release. Completely floored by the response that we've received from the demo that released last Thursday, and the team is super energized because of it. But it's also balanced with like just the reality of the situation. As you know, we talked prior to the show that I'm in my car right now because of. Because just like every single day is just so strange, and way we have to like go about doing our business is so different these days, and so we have to balance that with struggles that people have in the world. Which brings me back to like more of a positive note, was that I know that this game is really important for a lot of people. It's important for fans of Marvel. It's important for fans of PlayStation. It's important for Sony, PlayStation, for Camouflaj and Marvel as well. But it's also, I think, a really important game for the PlayStation VR community, because it is a game that I think is a type of game that your audience really wants, right? It's not a demo, it's not experiment, it's a full-fledged big AAA VR game that we've just been working our tails off for the last number of years, trying to get ready for you guys.
How many number of years was it that you've been working on this thing?
So it's hard to say, because our initial prototypes were done in like late summer, early fall of 2016. Okay. But yeah, the development definitely took a wayward path. But that's around the time that I was approached by Marvel to see if Camouflaj would be interested in doing a really big and really ambitious VR game. And we obviously came back and said, well, if it's Iron Man, sign us up. And then I don't know if you know the rest of the story.
Oh, please tell me.
But basically Jay Young, who runs Marvel Games, like more or less laughed in my face and said, I will never give you the Iron Man IP. Camouflaj is a great company, but we're not sure that you guys are up to the task. And in fact, when I was watching one of your videos, I think that even came up in conversation with Dave and AJ, which is like, who the heck are these guys? They did Republic VR. I know it's not your favorite video game, Brian. I forgive you. But he knows my pedigree. I come from a background of Metal Gear, Halo, and I started Camouflaj not to be an indie studio, but to be the next greatest AAA independent studio in the world. And he knew my ambition, and his ambition was big too, but I still had to prove it to him that we were up to the task. So what ended up happening was that we spent a week or two just prototyping what it would be like to be Iron Man in VR. And from the first few days of that prototype, we felt like we nailed it. And then we packed all the VR equipment in the back seat of a rental minivan, drove from Seattle down to Los Angeles, pitched Marvel the next day. They played it, and that was all they really needed to know that we were up for the challenge.
Wow. First of all, I had no idea that you actually like watched and paid attention and had any idea what we were doing over here Without Parole.
I'm obsessed.
Well, we're obsessed as well. I think where I was coming from, and I want to clarify only because this is a question I was going to ask you anyway. Let's start at the beginning. How big was the team that worked on Republic?
I think we maxed out probably around 30, 35.
Okay, and where are you at now, team size?
We're about double that.
And I mean, and that, I feel like that's sort of essential, right? When you go from Republic to Iron Man, those two games are. I mean, I feel like they couldn't be any more different, especially in terms of scope.
Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, I think the ambition level for Iron Man is far greater than Republic ever was. I mean, Republic, to be fair, started in my bedroom. It was me, and then it was another guy, and then it was another guy. We were real scrappy. After we spent through all of my life savings, I liquidated my 401k for Microsoft at a 50% tax penalty, and I sold all of my stock in Microsoft at $25. And my dad likes to tell me what Microsoft is worth now per share, and just laugh in my face. But it was worth it. It was worth the investment in starting a studio, and I'm really proud of what we did with Republic. But we always felt like we were just, this was the first game, and it's helping us get started, because we have far greater ambitions. And so when that opportunity with Marvel and then eventually with Sony landed on our doorstep, I felt like here we go. This is our true calling. Now we have an opportunity to grow the team and to really leverage a lot of not only my experience, but the experience of other individuals on the team. For example, Stephen Hauer, who worked on Halo 4 with me, or with Ryan Darcy, who's co-directing the game with me. He also worked on Halo. And we just have like such an amazingly talented and experienced team that, yes, I think their experience is more aligned with Marvel's Iron Man VR than maybe a Republic or Republic VR.
Yeah. I mean, we've heard from people like Chandana Akinayake from Outer Loop Games that a lot of studios developing for PSVR help each other out. Is that something you experienced while making Iron Man?
Oh yeah, I think the VR community is a really tight knit community, and we all understand that we're still in the early days of VR game development, and we have a lot to learn from our peers, our colleagues, but also from fans of the game. So I love Eka. I love talking to other VR developers because not only are we talking, but we're also playing a lot of VR games because we're learning. Oh wow, you guys are doing that with your UI, or you guys are doing that with your mechanics. But an essential component of this, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you, Brian, but an essential component is watching the content that you guys create and reading the comments from your community to see that, wow, this really hardcore PlayStation VR community wants this comfort option and this feature and this. And that is I feel so blessed and lucky that our demo came out when it did, because we still have time to make some tweaks to the game before it goes to full release. And I think that's in large part thanks to you and your community.
Well, I mean, that's awesome to hear, because so often it feels like a lot of developers aren't listening at all. You know, when games launch with mandatory click turning, mandatory comfort settings, mandatory blinders, all of that stuff, I mean, people lose their mind over here, and they just scream in the comments, like, I'm not buying this until they fix it. And then sometimes it just never gets fixed. So really happy to hear that. And actually, if we can, I was going to save these till the end, but I do want to jump over to something that one of our community members asked, or Seek the Game Cat asked, why aren't we shooting with the triggers? Is this one of the things that you've heard in response to the demo, that maybe the move buttons and triggers feel like they are backwards?
Yeah, so there's a number of things that we caught based on the initial community's feedback on the demo, and I think probably about a half a dozen fixes have already gone to the full game since the demo release, thanks to the community's response. The one that we're hesitant to do, not only because it'd be a lot of work and be what a really risky fix or feature to add right now, would be swapping the move button and the trigger button, and I'll explain why. And I'm not saying that we won't do it down the road, but like right now, like it's actually absolutely like a too risky of a fix. But one of the reasons that we haven't done that, so we haven't supported that feature up until now, is that we actually tried to do that like 2 years ago, and we realized how it actually breaks the game. And then 2, we quickly realized that once you put thrust on the move button, you can't snap turn with that same hand.
Okay.
Because one of the things we've done with the game, and I know that your community was asking for, and we've already changed it this way, is that we have your snap turns on square and triangle on both.
You're my new
controllers
best friend.
now.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Well, yeah. So you can imagine like using your thumb to do thrusting and snap turns at the same time. So will it result in like a worse experience for most players? Yeah, if I'm being honest, I think it would. Do I understand why players want it now? Absolutely, because if you're playing, like, for example, Saints and Sinners before you play Iron Man, you're moving with the move button, so your brain's used to doing that. But the fact of the matter is, like, once you develop Iron Man VR and you realize that you need that degree of precision to fly around with your thrusters, that is the way that we needed to design the game. However, I do understand what the community is coming back with, so I'm wondering that once the game comes out and you spend more than an hour or 2 with the game and you get used to the way that we've designed it, and people are still like, no, man, even if I can't snap turn, I need to swap these things. That's something that we can definitely consider down the road, but I don't think it's going to make it in time for July 3rd.
I've got so many questions to ask you. It's like everything that you're talking about right now is so prevalent. Like the snap turning, I've talked to so many people who have played the entire demo over and over and over without using turn buttons, because you guys have made some kind of crazy magic happen behind the scenes with the move controllers, tracking even when they're not in view of the camera. How did you make that happen? Like, no one else seems to have succeeded at this.
Well, it's a combination. Well, thank you. It's a combination of uh, wild ambition, uh, a the the talent of our engineering and design team, uh, some technical black magic that we're sprinkling on top of it, and lastly, luck, because our game supports 360 movement by the sure fact that players are typically flying with their hand with the move controllers at their
Right.
sides, which allows the PlayStation camera to see the PlayStation Move controllers. And then when they have their hands up, generally speaking, players are putting their hands up to fire with the repulsors and are roughly around the same area every time. And then we don't need to see the move controllers if they want to rocket punch or ground pound because we know what's going on with the gyroscope. Sorry to get a little technical, but there's definitely like more than just hand wavy technical black magic that we sprinkled on this feature. There's actually just a lot of luck involved. In other words, I don't know if you could do the same feature with like a different type of
Yeah.
game. It required a lot of precision around like where you're holding the controllers out in front of you, for example.
I gotcha. So I have to ask because this is something that's been coming up quite a bit. Not so much in our community because me, Dave, and AJ haven't really had a chance to get out to many expos recently, and Iron Man wasn't at the PAX East when I went. So I keep hearing that this is the same demo that has been making the rounds at conventions like upwards of over a year ago. Is that true?
Mm. Yeah, so stop me if I'm getting too much in the weeds, Brian, because like I could talk about Marvel's Iron Man VR development and features and everything
Yeah.
all day, every day.
Get in
But
the weeds, man. We love it.
the quick, the quick history is that this demo that is in the hands of everybody now was first shown last March to press behind closed
Okay.
doors. And however, it was just the Malibu opening and the a private and then the cinematic inside the private jet and then the jet mission. Um, However, since then we've been updating and just working on the main game every day throughout, and we would update the game as it was getting taken to Comic Con in San Diego last July, or at Tokyo Game Show, or at China Joy in Shanghai. And so, yeah, the demo has made its way around the world but in like different variations. But then when we talked to our friends at PlayStation, we were really adamant, and thankfully they were super supportive of our idea that we can talk about how awesome this game is until we're blue in the face, but until you get your hands on it, I think you don't really believe it, and you shouldn't believe it because that's part of the nature of VR. You need to try it out for
Right.
yourself. And so, not only did PlayStation and Marvel allow us to build to release this demo for free last Thursday, but they allowed me to include additional new content that nobody had access to up until last Thursday. And specifically, what those are is those two optional missions that we unlock after you complete the main campaign missions, the flight challenge and the difficult combat challenge, which we also snuck in auxiliary weapons, which we haven't really talked about, which is how you gesture up and down to fire. You go vertical with your move controllers to do your propulsors, and you go horizontal to fire your auxiliary weapons. And then we snuck in the unibeam as well. I don't know if you've tried it out or if you've seen your community
Yeah.
find it. We've got that feature in there as well. So it is a highly advanced version of what people were playing last year, and we just wanted to make sure that the fans and the community not only got access to that, but plus more, but also had enough content to get used to the flight mechanics. So once they get to that level of mastery, they're ready for the full game.
So what you're saying is that the demo that we played is pretty representative of the final product.
Yes, in the sense that, well, yes and no. To be honest, when when our QA guy played this demo right just to do a final verification pass before it went live, he announced to the team, he's like, "Whoa, this! I'm so happy of all like the small little tweaks that we've done since we finished this demo." So there's lots of small tweaks underneath the hood for flying, for HUD, that your more observant players will notice. The other differences are we've already gone through and updated a lot of the textures because I know that some of your fans or for some of your community noticed that like, here and there in pockets of Malibu, like one of our LODs wasn't like loading properly or whatever. We're just doing the final kind of polish pass on that.
Nice.
And then lastly, I want to say is that I think these two environments that you guys got to play with the demo are the two smallest environments that we have in the full game.
That's so
In
good
other
to
words,
hear.
it gets much bigger. We've got downtown Shanghai. We've got that huge helicarrier that you can fly around and fly through. And then we've got other environments that we haven't talked about at all that are even bigger than that.
Well, one of my hopes, one of the things I've been saying about Iron Man, and I feel awful if this isn't included in the game because I'm telling you, I'm like, I know I'm too late to the party to actually get this in, but I was hoping for a reason to explore. Like going around down Shanghai, flying around and like looking around buildings, looking for collectibles. I've got my fingers crossed. Is that something that happens in the final game?
Well, yes and no. So one of the things that we did was, like, if I had Steven and the art team here on the call, we would talk your ear off about how fun, but also how challenging it's been to create the environments for this game because the player flies so
Yeah.
fast that we have to create so much content, and it has to look great. Like that's what the community wants. And so when we create these massive assets and we just do one or two bombastic campaign missions in there, it still feels like we're not like taking full advantage of all this great work that the team has done. And we find that players still want to explore the environments, like you said. So one of the things I haven't talked about at all to anybody, but I think it's fair to share, is that players can return to any of the campaign mission areas with like a free flight
Nice.
mode, and without stress, go around and just fly around at top speed to their heart's content. Are there collectibles around those spaces? No, not necessarily, but you'll be able to find like some kind of Easter eggy callouts to super hardcore Iron Man and Marvel history through like some of the building names and stuff like that. But we don't like do like collect 100 packages or 500 red balloons that children have lost in the world or something like that. We don't do that.
Yeah, yeah. About the time trials, you mentioned the time trials, and one of our community members, Elvert, absolutely killed it.
Yeah.
He shared his 29.58 second clip on this week's viewer takeover. Are there going to be more time trials in the full game?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, shout outs to Elvert and I tweeted about that amazing record that
So
he did.
crazy.
And the team was watching with like bated breath with each of the videos that he was uploading to
Right? It was like
YouTube.
better and
And
better and better with every one. He was crazy.
in our internal like channels, we're like, he's going to do it. He's totally going to do it. And sure enough, he did it. So we're super impressed with him. And yeah, so for all the time trials in the game, there will be for all the environments in the game, there are time trials, and there are combat trials for every environment in the game. And we try to make them progressively more difficult to keep players like Elvin like really entertained for hopefully a long time to come. And then another thing which I'll just more or less hint at is that once players have finished the whole campaign, we unlock one more mission. It's an optional mission. It's not a campaign level quality mission, but it's for the hardcore players who want the ultimate challenge. And it's so difficult that I haven't been able to
Wow.
finish it, and I doubt I will before July 3rd.
That's very exciting, man. That's like something that presenting that challenge, especially to the community, is they're gonna be drooling, just trying to get their hands on that. It's gonna be awesome.
In fact, if you don't mind, Brian, I want to reveal that I've got a bet going on with my co-director Ryan Darcy about this. That the community can't finish that final optional mission on the first day of release of the
First
game.
day of release. What's the
So,
bet? What's the
um,
bet? Who wins what? What's happening?
well, once the world gets back to normal, like we're going to bet a
Nice.
stake. So, I think that the community. I can't remember which. I don't think they'll be able to do it, and he thinks they will. So we'll see what
Yeah, I'll,
happens.
I'll I'll bet on Elbert for sure. We bet a lot of
Too.
pizzas. We don't bet steaks, but we bet pizzas for sure.
That's
Nice.
good.
Hey, so I think we sort of started off this whole conversation talking about the difficulties that you face with what's happening in the world right now with COVID-19, and I even just kind of took a quick glance at the website, the Camouflaj website, and I saw that you'd written COVID-19 is just one of many challenges the team at Camouflaj has had to overcome in the game's multi-year development, and I realized like it's almost magical that video games get made at all because they're just so ridiculously complex and there's so many different moving parts
Mm.
and they all have to work together so well. I can't imagine having to do that from home. Like how have you guys kind of banded together and made this still happen?
Mm. Well, when when the pandemic started, the first thing that we did was make sure that the team was safe and that we were really quick to move towards getting people to work remote. while we're keeping a constant eye on the news and the developments. And so we made the team safety first. And the beautiful thing is that our partners at PlayStation and Marvel were very supportive of that, knowing that this was going to impact the game's production, no doubt. And so, but the good news is that I think in record time, the team was able to work remotely and get into a groove where we are still working on the game and finishing it and getting to the level of quality that we all want the game to be at. Has it been a challenge? Absolutely. Is it really difficult to build, especially a VR game remotely? Absolutely. But there's one silver lining to it, which is we're not experimenting with new features and highly iterating on new ideas as a team remotely. We are in the final phase of development where it's a lot of put your headphones on, look at your bug tracker and fix stuff and make stuff better. So the phase of development we're in is actually strangely compatible with remote work at the moment. But all that being said, it has been a challenge, but I'm happy that we've gone gold, which is something that we're announcing officially tomorrow, and that we're just in that final phase of development.
Awesome. Congratulations. That's a great milestone to reach. Let's go to the community again. One of our moderators, Johnny Rypop, the Stray Cat, says, do you have any future content for the game after it releases? I mean, we live in such a world of DLC and patches and updates and stuff. I mean, is that even something you're looking at yet?
Yeah, so we're definitely thinking about future DLC. We don't have anything specifically to announce right now, but we've got some cool plans involved. But we also have some really cool pre-order bonuses and the digital deluxe, which unlocks custom decos. But one of the things that we are actually adding into the game really, really recently is, again, to give players, allow players to kind of extend their playtime by allowing players to unlock these custom decos for their impulse armor through various challenges that we're setting in the game. And so if we were to extend the game through DLC, I would imagine that we would like to add more challenges for players, because, again, we understand that players just don't want to have a casual, short PlayStation VR experience with this game, that they want to be able to come back to it after they've finished the campaign and be asked to meet the game halfway in terms of taking on these ever increasingly difficult challenges. And so that's one thing that we're thinking about as a team.
You've mentioned, I think, at least twice in this interview now that you know what PSVR gamers want, and that they want a full-fledged a game, not an experience. I'm assuming that you and pretty much everyone on the team has played through this game from start to finish at least once or twice,
or I don't know, hundreds of times. I've been playing through the game from start to finish for probably over a year now.
What's the average runtime? Developers tend to pad these things out, man. So give me a real time. What's the average runtime?
Oh, well, I mean, the last thing I would want to do is pad this out, because then on day one, a guy's going to tweet at me with a picture of I finished your game in this amount of hours, and
it's going to happen anyway.
I'm like, okay,
no matter what you say.
Anyway, so I believe in under promising and over delivering, in that it's not just a few hour experience. Will some players who aren't big story players blast through the game a lot faster than others? Absolutely. And I hope they have a great time. But one thing I do want to recommend, even though that Ryan Darcy and I have that bet, is that when your community gets their hands on this game on July 3rd, just like when I experience other VR games, I think it's good to, maybe spend an hour or two per day. Let it sink in, sleep on it, let your brain make those those connections and all those neurons in their brain about how the game is working. Play it another couple hours the next day and just kind of enjoy it for 3 or 4 or 5 days. Because I think that's the best way to experience VR. And I think it's the best way to experience the game.
You're talking to the guy that does 8-hour live streams.
Well, that doesn't apply to you, Brian. You have a job to do.
But you still haven't given us a number, so I'm waiting for.
Sadly, I'd be stupid to give you a number. But is it? Let me just put it this way. Yeah, is it super short? Absolutely not. Is it as long as Half-Life Alyx? I don't think it is. But it's I still think it's a really, really healthy number of hours of content, plus all the additional things that we've added to the game in terms of replayability. I think players are gonna be really happy.
All right. I won't press you anymore. Listen, man, you know by now our viewers are called the Game Cats, and we end every interview with a meow. Can you meow for me?
Meow.
Nice. I really like that.
I have a cat. That's how I communicate with her.
Perfect. You know the international language, then. I'm very proud of you. Ryan, this has been awesome, man. Thank you so much for spending some time with us talking about Iron Man. We are all super, super excited for the July 3rd release. Man, I can't wait to get back in touch and maybe talk to you a little bit more after release.
Oh, thanks so much, and thanks for hyping the game too, Brian. I know your community's a little nervous, but hopefully it's all worth the wait.
Man. You just wait for that 6 to 8 hour live stream at launch. It's happening. Awesome, dude. Thank you again. We'll definitely talk soon.
You bet.
Bye.